Shalom, Yasharala. This your brother Dawada, coming back at you with this here truth again. First and foremost, I want to give all praise unto Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushai, Bahashim, Rahakodash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of great millstone that taught us this truth and that rule well. A salutation and much love for you, I can pushing this truth and sincerity on the four corners of the earth and enduring afflictions to feed and edify the elect. So I want to jump into this here lesson real quick, dealing with basically this here article and way things are leading to, because we talk about this here space program and what they're talking about or whatever, whatnot, but we know the ultimate agenda. Now, in this here article here, which I'm not going to go too much into, it's basically talking about being able to see, space debris further off because of, the reflection is and the deflections of the sunlight versus being in the darkness. But nevertheless, as we go through these scriptures, we break down how the Lord's going to come back in his chariots, all right? But nevertheless, and, we're going to go into 2nd Ezra 13, but nevertheless, when we talk about how the scriptures break down with his laser beams and things like that, or how the Lord wrote the 10 Commandments, he scribed it with his own fingertips, those laser point, people will think that this is all far-fetched, all right? But if it's so far-fetched, now Esau is bringing the same technology out, which he's already had this technology, but he's bringing the technology out in the forefront, But what is he ultimately going to use it against? The Lord, to fight against the Lord, all right? So real quick, it says planetary defense reinforced by new laser array that can help spot invisible debris in broad daylight, all right? So there was one little small thing I wanted to grab out of here. It says lasers are our go-to tool to track space debris above the earth and help companies and nations alike avoid any unwanted contact in orbit. However, these defenses have been operating under extreme limitations until now, all right? And why are they actually upgrading these things, all right? Because they're planning to fight the Lord ultimately, all right? So as you can see, this here picture here is, as they say, for these satellites, but ultimately for the chariots when they come back, all right? It says, now by using pulse of light aimed at satellites carrying the requisite reflectors, our planetary defenders have detected some 40 different debris objects and stars approximately 10 times fainter than what can be seen by the naked eye, in much the same way that a bat echolocation, but with visible light rather than sound waves, all right? It says, ultimately, it means we get to know the debris population better, allowing us to protect Europe's space infrastructure, says Dr. Michael Stendendorf in the Australian Academy of Science, all right? What's more, the next generation laser detection station is already under construction and will be deployed to the next EAS optical ground station in the Canary Islands, all right? But nevertheless, we know what this is all being put together for, all right? So let's go into some scriptures real quick. Before I get into 2nd Ezra 13, let me grab this in Isaiah. This is Isaiah 66 and verse 15. It says, for behold, Yahweh, the Lord, Yahweh will come with fire and with his chariots like a whirlwind to render his anger with fury and his rebuke with flames of fire. All right. And ultimately how he's going to be pushing out this here fire. All right. We're going to get it in 2nd Ezra. All right. It's through these laser beams. All right. And again, like I said, a lot of times we go through these things, and people will come out the woodwork. Oh, you guys are fantasizing or whatever, whatnot, or that's not what the scriptures say or whatever, whatnot. But you have to understand, in those days, they didn't have words like laser beams and satellites orbiting in space and things like that. So they had to describe it the best ways that they could, They were very descriptive about these things because what is a laser beam? It's just concentrated heat, Let's go into 2nd Ezra 13 and 1. It says, and it came to pass that after 7 days I dreamed a dream by night, and lo, there arose a wind from the sea that moved all the waves thereof. And I beheld, and lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heavens. All right, so that's talking about when Yahushua returns with these chariots, these with the angels, basically. There's going to be multiple chariots. In fact, let me grab something else real fast. This is in the book of Revelation, chapter 12. Is it 12 and 12 or 12 and 8? This is Revelations 12 and 7. And there was a war in heaven, and Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels. All right, what this is talking about is, we can actually grab this as well in 2nd Ezra 13, but it's going to be one realm against another realm. All right, you see Esau, which is the devil and his angels fighting with their technology, and on the left-hand side, their spiritual power on the left-hand side, coming against the Lord and his power and his glory, all right, with real spiritual power on the right-hand side, all right? And how it's all going to end, it says, let me read 7 again. And there was a war in heaven, and Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels and prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. And that great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels was cast out with him. All right, and we're going to actually go into their account. All right, but as you can see, this is what things are being prepped for right now. All right, with the space, not the space defense. It used to be called the Space Defense Initiative, SDI. Then it went to Star Wars program with Ronald Reagan. All right, he was the one who made the famous speech we're about to go into. All right, but nevertheless, they call it now the Space Force. All right, so this is 2nd Ezra 13. I want to grab a different script real fast. Let me find this other precept. This is 2nd Ezra 13 and 31. And one shall undertake to fight against another, one city against another, one place against another, one people against another. So we read about that all the time in Matthew 24 about nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. But this is, ultimately going into what? World War III, all right, where all these nations going to be gathered together to fight against one another. All right, now in the midst of World War III, you're going to have a different war, just like Ronald Reagan said, if, how would it be, basically roughly paraphrasing, if, there was some kind of outside alien force that came through or whatever, how we would put our differences aside and come together and fight against that threat, right? Now, that speech was spiritual because what does it say here? 2nd Ezra 13 and 31, and one shall undertake to fight against another, and one city against another, one place against another, and one people against another, going into World War III, and one realm against another. The spiritual realm versus the physical realm, which we just read in Revelation chapter 12, about how Michael and his angels fought against the dragon and his angels, all right? So let's go back up, because what we were just reading down is basically the breakdown of what this dream is all about, right? So let's go back up to the top. It says, 2nd Ezra 13 and verse 3, and I beheld, and lo, that man waxed strong with thousands of heaven, all right? And when he turned his countenance to look, all things trembled that were seen under him, all right? Going into when he's coming back in these chariots, all right? And whensoever the voice went out of his mouth, they all burned that heard the voice, like the earth filleth when it filleth the fire. All right, which it'll go further into it, break it down. But this is basically talking about those laser beams, when the chariots start shooting out those laser beams. Verse 5, and after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of number from the four winds of heaven to subdue the man that came out of the sea. So again, going back to the Ronald Reagan situation, and how he was basically prophesying about this. He was saying, hey, how we would put our differences aside if there was some outside alien threat. Well, ultimately, like the scriptures say, they're going to be fighting in World War III. All right, and then that's when the Lord's going to return in those chariots, man. And then they're going to band together to fight against the Lord. All right. Verse 5 again, and after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of number from the four winds of the heaven to subdue the man that came out of the sea. And I beheld, and lo, he had graved himself a great mountain and flew up upon it, talking about those chariots. And I would have seen the region or the place wherein the hill was graven out, and I could not. And after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid, and yet durst fight. All right, because once they see the Lord come back in these chariots and the things, the mind-defying, earth-boggling, mind-boggling things that these chariots can do, appear and reappear and multiply and divide and so on and so forth, all these different things that these chariots can do. When these human beings see all these things is going on, they're going to freak out. Even though they're going to have this type of technology like AI airplanes, drones, and laser beams, and different type of armors and things like that. But that's on the left-hand side. That's on the man's side. They have, stealth fighter jets where you can physically see it with your eyes, but on radar, you're not able to pick it up. This is how they have so-called invisible planes, invisibility cloaks, which they actually do have, paints and things like that to pretty much make things invisible and things like that, or change what you think you're seeing. But nevertheless, at the end all be all, the Lord actually has this technology to be able to make these chariots appear and disappear out of your actual sight to where you can't see it with your naked eye, It says, verse 8 again, after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid, and yet durst fight. And lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, he neither lifted up his hand, nor held sword, nor any instrument of war. But I only saw that he had sent out of his mouth, as it had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempest. And they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, the great tempest, and it fell with violence upon the multitude which were prepared to fight and burn them up, every one, so that upon a sudden of innumerable multitude, nothing was to be perceived, but only dust and the smell of smoke. And when I saw this, I was afraid. All right, because that's when the Lord is bringing those laser beams out and out of the chariots, and start zapping people, man. And when the Lord gets down with these chariots, man, all right, it's gonna be a sight to behold, because people has never seen the likes of this a day in their life, man. You think that you was traumatized seeing the World Trade Center collapse and things like that? That was a devastating visual to see or whatever, whatnot. But that's almost akin to what you're gonna see in this here moment, man. You just had that thing over in Beirut the other day where that explosion happened. And you start seeing things just basically getting incinerated in seconds. It was there and then all of a sudden it was gone. Going back to 9/11, you've seen those towers and all that metal and all that infrastructure and all that debris And you know, in a matter of what 8 seconds, all that turned to dust and the smell of smoke, man. You know, those people were actually running around, and they, you know, go back and look at the clips. They was covered in all that white powder, man. Those were all the body parts, all the concrete, all the so on and so forth. That you know, that ultimately that was incinerated from those laser beams, man. All right, so ultimately, this is what the Lord's going to do when He comes back to render, you know, His fury and His, roughly paraphrasing, His fury and His flames of rebuke, man, with those chariots, man. This is what it's going to ultimately come down to. But this is why you see Esau preparing the way he's preparing now with his military, his space force, his weaponry and things like that, because he's not planning to fight a normal war. He's planning to fight a war with the Lord, man. So now the Lord wants a so-called fair fight, you know, but we know it's not a fair fight. But the Lord has given Esau, you know, the prime of His blessing, man, the ultimate sword, man, the ultimate weapon, man. All right, because why? Esau was blessed with the sword, but now the Lord is allowing him to, take it to his peak, man. All right, with the laser weapons, AI airplanes, smart bombs, and so on and so forth. But ultimately, the Lord is going to have the ultimate victory. All right. Let me go back. Let me read this one more time in Revelations. We'll close out because, you know, I just wanted to get into a quick little lesson because, you know, people laugh and scoff when we bring these things out about the so-called UFOs, the laser beams, and so on and so forth. But hey, what is Trump preparing for? Not Trump. What is America preparing for? What are these nations preparing for, man? What type of technology are they using it for? What do they need this technology for, man? What do you need? What do you need laser weapons for when you got like bombs and stuff to blow up everything else that's on the battlefield, like tanks and planes and all that stuff, man? All right. So going back to Revelation 12:7, it says, and there was a war in heaven, and Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And that great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. All right, because ultimately, this is how this here fight is going to ultimately end, man. So no matter how much they try to prepare with their weaponry, their space force, and so on and so forth, because you have these Americans now, we're the most dominant power on the earth, and now we got a space force. Can't nobody mess with us. If aliens came, you know, these people here are full of pride, man. But the Lord is gonna, you know, they're gonna all be afraid, man, once they see these chariots actually pop up, man. All right, and the military knows about these things, man. It's no longer a joke or a laughing stock or a conspiracy theory, man. All right, you about to soon see the Lord return these chariots and put in some work on these Edomites, man. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and close out with that. Just wanted to touch on this real quick because I was looking at that article, but you know, it's something to say that the fact of the matter, people laugh and scoff at certain things, but as it's coming out, as you know, when the Lord is doing it, it's something all weird or whatever, whatnot. But now, as Esau is doing it, people think, oh, yeah, I can see that, laser weapons. But hey, the Lord has already created these things before Esau did, man. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and close out with that. The Lord, when this here lesson was edifying into the elect. Until next time, I say, call halal Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakodash. Double honor to the apostles and elders, great millstone that taught us this truth and that rule well. And salutation and much love for you. I can push in truth and sincerity in the four corners of the earth and enduring afflictions to feed and edify the elect. Until next time, I say, stay strong. Shalom.